This is Randy.
This is Melanie.
And this is Jesse.
So we got a comment on a YouTube video. It was one of our gameplay videos. Hey, we do gameplay videos.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. It was a gameplay video where they were like...
It was a gameplay video where they're asking about podcast episode.
All right.
That's interesting.
Now, we put all our podcast episodes up on YouTube, but I don't know that they really get a lot of traction. Well, I do know they don't get a lot of traction. I see the views, but I throw them up there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out there are some people that listen to them there.
Mm-hmm.
So because on one of our I think it was a recent Bendy video.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? It was on a Bendy video.
I think so. I could be wrong. Or maybe it was on, it doesn't matter, but it was one of the gameplay videos. And somebody asked, they're like, when are you going to do Doctor Who season 11 or series 11 part 3? It's been months since part 2. Because in November and December, I believe we did part 1, part 2 when the show was running for an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sabrina happened and we were like, let's do Sabrina. And we never went back to finish, because we were waiting on the New Year special. That's really what threw it off. Yeah. And we record episodes before the end of the month. And so January, before the end of December, we recorded January's episodes, and Sabrina or Doctor Who's special hadn't aired yet.
Well, and our New Year's resolution was interviews. So they kind of took the forefront of our planning.
Yeah, they really did. So now this isn't, I understand, I'm sorry, YouTube commenter, if this is disappointing, but this is not, obviously we're not dedicating a whole episode to this like we did the other ones. But I figured the letters page would be a good time to touch on the remaining 3 or 4 episodes of the show and the special that we didn't talk about. In talking to Jesse about this beforehand, I found, I don't know that the show is going to benefit from that extra time. Because when I got to thinking about it, I remember nothing about what happened.
Season 11, absence does not make the heart grow fonder.
No. And Jesse, I believe you said you rewatched the special or the finale.
I watched.
Well, I guess the same difference.
So where we left off with Kerblam, I believe, was the last episode that we kind of officially reviewed. So that leaves us with Witchfinders, which was the one that was kind of set in the Salem witch trials, that whole thing. It Takes You Away, which was maybe one of the more interesting episodes of the ones that we have left, where they kind of visit this weird mirror world by going through some weird dimensional tunnel that was devoid of light, but had creatures living in it. It was pretty crazy, creepy, and weird and awesome. And then the one that I revisited was the season finale, and that was the Battle of Ranskoor Avkolos. And that one I was just like, I have to rewatch this because I know it was the finale and I know there were some cool moments, but I couldn't tell you for the life of me what that episode was even about. Like the other ones, I could give you a kind of a brief synopsis of. Witchfinders was Salem witch trial historical. It Takes You Away was some kind of weird mirror world where people that are long dead are still around. And then there was the finale. And I didn't know what to say about the finale, so I rewatched it, and I still don't know. I mean, I could kind of give you a synopsis, but there's so much weird stuff happening in that what's the point of it? I'm not entirely sure. And then Resolution was pretty good.
That was the Dalek one.
Yep.
Yeah. Are we going to go one by one?
Yeah, let's do, okay. Witchfinders. You remember that one now?
I do.
Okay.
I had to look at it, but yeah.
It was interesting. I think watching your face, Melanie, your reactions when Jesse's doing a summary on these, it was interesting because I kind of was the same way. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My big beef with Witchfinders is I know that there were crazy times when they had witch trials and it was a lot of people that they accused and died, but I don't think it was a different person every freaking 5 minutes. And it kind of felt like they were doing that a little bit in the beginning here. And I'm like, come on, that's too much.
Well, and this was there were a couple of big guest star moments in this season, but this was Alan Cumming was arguably one of the biggest guest stars that they had this season, I think. And he played King James, and it was good, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I guess I really enjoyed the historical episodes this season. And then this one kind of let me down in comparison, because I was like, oh, the historicals have been so good, you know, so I'm looking forward to this. You know, you've got a female doctor in an era where females were basically burned at the stake as witches. I mean, that's ripe. That's ripe for exploration. And and then we got there and it was like, yuck. It's not. And I mean, if they're, you know, I know this season got a lot of flack for being SJW fodder or whatever. This episode was maybe a little too on the nose for some of that too. Where it's like, oh, well, you're a female, so you couldn't possibly be in charge. Who's actually in charge? Oh, well, it's Graham and Ryan.
Yeah. But the lady who owned everything and was running the witch trials was a woman.
Right. Yeah. It was so bizarre. It was so bizarre and didn't really stick to the message, or, you know, like, I don't know what was going on here.
You know, if I were possessed and I figured I was possessed because I'm leaking crap out of my every pore, I don't think I would have witch trials to call attention to weird stuff going on. I'd try to hide it, you know? Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? There's no weird stuff going on. Just ignore it. You know, not like
Right.
let's murder everybody so everybody keeps looking for more of the things that are wrong with me. You know,
Right.
There was some entertaining stuff in this episode, but yeah, I was not super fond of this one.
And the stupid tree thing.
The end,
Ugh.
yeah, the reveal of like what was going on. I was like, what? That is left field.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't really make sense.
No, didn't.
Not feeling it. It was a letdown.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, like, Jesse. I did kind of appreciate, it's so strange, but that's like one of the things this season overall did pretty well, was bring back historicals and made them kind of entertaining. But this one did not work for me. It was, yeah.
I kind of liked that their king guy was just a psycho, kind of. That was fun.
Alan Cumming was interesting. I will say that he did a pretty good job with the role, but I don't know. It almost distracted from the episode. Like,
yeah.
He was maybe the best thing about it, you know?
It was almost like a Fear and Loathing style. He's like, oh, I have my own set of torture tools. Hold on. You know?
And
Yeah.
his whole flirtation with Ryan too was pretty fun. I mean, like, there was good parts about this episode, but I guess some of the things that really disappointed me about it was that first of all, my unrealistic expectation that all of the historicals were going to be awesome. And that's my fault. That's my fault. But then this was the episode where the doctor could have got mad. Like, she tried, and it fell flat for me. Like, there's a moment where it's like, oh, she's almost there. She's not scary. And I don't know if that's my fault for not buying in, or if it's she needed to be pushed. Like, a director needed to push her a little harder, or if she just didn't bring the performance. But I was like,
really go there.
No, she hasn't. She still hasn't, you know?
I don't know that they will. Like, that,
Maybe they're afraid to, with all the backlash on the stuff, you know,
Yeah.
political correctness. Maybe they don't want to let her.
In the defense of this season, when I think back about doctors, when I think about all of them in the 50-year run, there's only 2 doctors where I'm like, oh yeah, the first season of their run is the watershed moment. It continues a standard of excellence, but it never gets much better than that. Like, there's only 2 times that I can say that. One is William Hartnell, because when I think of William Hartnell, I usually think of Susan and Barbara and
the first TARDIS crew, the early early
like,
episodes,
I think of
amazing.
them. And so obviously season 1 of that, because it's the very, very beginning, and then the 9th Doctor, because there is nowhere to go from there. I mean, like, he didn't get an opportunity to change or evolve. He just nailed it in his first run. It's, you know, he is what he is, and that's what we get. But when I think about, like, the 10th Doctor, not my favorite season, you know. The first season with Rose, that one's arguable. I mean, like, I would have a debate on that one. I can understand why people would say, no, the Rose season's the best, but it's not mine. It's not my favorite. And I feel that way about all the other doctors, like the early Troughton era, second Doctor. That's Ben and Polly are not my second Doctor era. It's Jamie. You know, you gotta wait. You gotta wait for some of the best second Doctor stuff. It's pretty good. He hits the ground running, but you know, that's not my favorite part.
It usually takes them at least a season to kind of fall into the role.
Yeah.
And then there's usually some type of especially, you know, you're focusing on the companions a lot, and I think that makes sense because there's a lot of, they kind of have to jockey around to find what works because each doctor has a different dynamic, each actor has a different dynamic, and the same kind of companions aren't necessarily going to fit each dynamic.
And some of them are just boring.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Or you know, you look at like the Fifth Doctor, and oddly, my favorite Fifth Doctor story has nothing to do with his crew. You know, usually his crew is, you know, Tegan and them. And my favorite story is the one that he has Perry with, you know.
What was the next one? Was It Takes You Away?
Takes You Away. And that's the one where they show up on this. It's kind of a weird setup. It's kind of a bait and switch because you think that there's a monster that's like surrounding this house. They find this house that just seems to be out in the middle of the sticks somewhere, and it's all boarded up, and they find this little girl in there, and she seems to be alone, and you think it's because there's something outside that's basically hunting them, and it winds up being none of that. It winds up being
it felt super creepy.
Yeah.
At first, until they discovered it was a horrible father instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell this terrifying story to my blind daughter, and then rig up some sound machines outside to keep her terrified and locked in the house, and then disappear for freaking months. What kind of a horrible person does that, Amy? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Steal away to an alternate dimension where I can hang out with my long dead wife that is apparently still alive in this other dimension, or seemingly still alive.
Mm.
This, I mean, something about it still felt off, but this might be one of my favorite episodes of the season.
I think so too.
This one was cool because you're right. It did feel legitimately creepy at first. That weird tunnel section was
weird.
It was
Super
very
weird.
weird. Weird in a non-Doctor Who way. Like, it felt like
Gaiman. I bet Neil Gaiman wrote it, huh? I don't know, but it felt like a Neil Gaiman
could have been.
book.
Yeah, you're right. It's got that vibe. It's not written by Neil Gaiman, but
No.
that fantasy horror.
Yeah.
Clive Barker was my other go-to, like a Hellraiser, something weird. Hellraiser's a little bit more darker edge, but you know, that kind of fantasy, magical horror hell thing. With that weird creature and the moths and the light balloon type thing. It was just very strange. I really liked it. The mirror universe was an interesting idea. I think
it was a big jump though to get there.
That's my main issue with the episode. Now that we're getting there, remembering what it was that was off was the Doctor figuring it out somehow by remembering something. It's like, nope.
Remembering
that's bad
by
writing.
remembering a possible theory she heard about once a long time ago. Not even like this thing existed. Well, I remember a long time ago they thought, well, maybe this is possibly how things
there was
could happen.
A legend of this and this, and it's like, well, that's it. What?
Yeah,
that's bad writing. Like, no offense, like I like the idea, I like the execution on most of it.
Yeah, they tried to pull a Zagreus with it, and it was not.
That's kind of a bigger issue for me of the season overall is one, either the monster or whatever it is, most of the time that's causing it is actually not a bad monster. It's misunderstood or something, which is fine. But like the monster reveals or the reason reveals are always disappointing, mostly disappointing, or like how they get there feels sloppy.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, Jesse, like a lot of, you must have mentioned it on one of our first two episodes. We talked about this. A lot of the writers are not traditionally sci-fi writers and stuff this season. And maybe that's it. Although you would think they might be better at how to get from point A to point B in a story progression sense, but maybe it's just not knowing how to do that in the format,
Yeah.
the 45-minute, 50-minute, hour-long show, whatever.
Hmm.
But that's one of the big parts where the season's fallen for me, is explaining things, or,
Coming up with a plausible reason for any of the characters to know any of this information.
there's a lot of interesting scenarios, but like how they get there is very
Mhm.
flimsy.
Yeah. Well, it's almost entirely, oh, I remember this thing. Well, you can't just have somebody magically remember everything right at the right moment. That's the opposite of how things work, even. When you're looking for something, you can't freaking find it, and you're doing something 2 weeks later, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's what it was. Be realistic. They'd be trapped in that universe and it exploded because the doctor wouldn't have thought of it till tomorrow.
Like there should be some element of detecting
Yeah.
to it, and there's not. I do like though how it ends, even though it gets kind of goofy,
Mhm.
but it also is kind of sad.
Oh, that's right. You talk to a frog, don't you?
Yeah, like it's
Oh, there's so much to this weird episode. Like that was,
Yeah.
Now I'm like revisiting it, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's so much weird stuff happening here.
it's thoroughly strange,
Yeah.
but I did enjoy it, and that's one aspect where, like, I mean, this doctor is more compassionate than some other doctors.
Yeah.
And it really, and I have no problem with that, but I think it worked best here
Yeah.
because you do get a sense that like she's kind of bummed about this whole thing. Like she's got to lie to it, and clearly, but she's bummed about it.
That
She's genuine.
the fact that they included a frog most made me think of Doctor Who's long, like its history with like Douglas Adams as a script writer, or script editor.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that's a very Douglas Adams type of thing to do.
But yeah, that might be my favorite episode of the season.
That and Rosa Rosa is probably a little bit above that for me, but
Mhm.
yes. Yeah. I think I would agree. These are probably two of my favorite. That and Kerblam is probably up there too.
I was kind of sad for, what's his butt? Can't remember his name.
Graham?
No, not Graham. The other one.
Ryan?
Because he didn't get a chance to see his grandma at all, did he?
No.
Oh, you're right.
Well, she wasn't
Yeah.
really.
I know it's
she-
not really his grandma, but she felt like she was.
Yeah.
They even had that conversation, and I get that Graham misses her and he's sad, but it's always about Graham,
Yeah.
And I just wanted him to have a chance to say goodbye to you.
Mhm.
That's a good
They needed
point,
it.
especially rolling into the next episode, because
Mhm.
Graham gets his little moment to maybe have some
Right.
closure, and then we roll into the season finale where we have the only through line of this entire season, I think, and that is
Mhm.
the return of Tim Shaw.
Yeah.
Or whatever that guy's name actually is.
Which episode did his dad? Was that the New Year's special that
His dad came back, yeah.
his dad showed
Yes, yeah, I believe so.
up? That kind of felt like a cheat a little bit for setting up some kind of progression for him.
Mhm.
But so the season finale, though, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it.
It's so weird. It's such a weird one. Like it starts with was it the Ooks? Is that what
these
they were called?
These like telepathic, or not even telepathic. They could basically just create things with their mind,
Yeah.
and there's just two of them in the whole universe.
And they live for an awful long time or something, and and yet they have this weird age gap. It's kind of strange.
This is such a weird place to go with that tooth-faced creature that they set up
Yeah.
in episode 1, I was not impressed with to begin with. It seems like it could have been any monster they happened to have earlier in the season could end up here.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean, I guess the point is they, the doctor or whoever potentially sent him to his death, like dealt with him in kind of a harsh way or
Mhm.
potentially harsh way. And so maybe this is more about her dealing with the
Of her
repercussion.
unintended consequence of her actions.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess there's that, but like, it just doesn't even seem like the same type of character.
It's such a weird, convoluted plot too. And this was a Chibnall. This was, I believe this was all Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. I like their power, and I like their religious sort of theme about it.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think there's only 2 of them ever. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's like only ever supposed to be 2 of them, and then they're supposed to go and like build a tower or something and see if the guy shows up, which is strange in itself. But you'd think they've been doing this for so many years, sure, but they still experience other parts of the universe. Like she was talking about people calling them for help for things in the past.
Mhm.
How do they not know that other things exist and this guy just showing up there doesn't mean he's a freaking god?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It seems super naive of them.
Yeah.
Then
To
he
just-
becomes the creator.
Yeah. And he's dying? The creator's dying. Yeah, no. I mean, that was way too far-fetched for me. And if that doesn't work, then none of the rest of it works, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the rest of it doesn't really matter because it does hinge on all kind of that.
Yeah.
I did like their weird biological religion magic science
Yeah.
thing they had going on.
Yeah.
Because they had this power, but they were also had to like rig up to this machine that also seemed like it was like,
Well, they only had to do that for him.
okay.
When they did their own, they didn't. They just stood there and did their thing.
Did
He
they?
used that to
Yeah.
amplify their power.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
they
Yeah.
could steal planets. And when you steal a planet, all I can think of is that one season, or the last season of the 10th Doctor, where they,
Yep.
where they're going to use the
They're
TARDIS to bring
towing
all
the planet.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
and even in the resolution of this episode, I'm just like, oh, don't even pretend that you can't warp some planets back into space after they've been shrunk because you've towed entire galaxies back into place.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that you need 7 people or something to fly this thing, but other than that, you can do anything with the TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the point with like the Graham and revenge, and like really that was revenge was kind of the overall theme of the episode.
Yeah.
But I mean, you knew he wasn't gonna do anything.
They did all right
I-
with that. Like, that was one of the better parts of this episode where they were like, we sentence you to life. Like, it was a little cheesy, it was a little hammy, but it was all right. You know, much better than trying to cram 17 different plot elements into one episode. Like, okay, we're on this planet and we have to wear these things on our heads and our necks. The things on our heads keep us from going crazy. The things on our necks allow us to talk to each other. We're going to go in and we're going to find some planets inside of rocks, but we don't know that they're planets inside of rocks until much later. And we don't know who's doing this or why. Blah, blah, blah. There's hostages, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's
really is.
And we
so
got-
much.
For
It's
some
a
reason,
lot.
have a backpack full of explosives.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Then she's going to be like, oh, I've got explosives and it's okay if you blow up things you can rebuild. And I change the rules all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was trying to do. It's like you're trying to wrap up the season, but you just made this plot so convoluted and weird.
You know, she took them into the TARDIS for a minute, but I totally want to see those people, the Oaks people, like flying up a TARDIS on their own. That'd be amazing. That'd be like a supernova powered people TARDIS machine. I don't know. It'd just be awesome.
You know, that is a thing that happened this season where it's like some of the weird side characters are better than what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good point. It's like the episode with that little cute creature that just
Yes.
eats everything.
Yeah.
Melanie you were all about the not the doctor, but the doctor, like the guy on the ship.
Yeah.
You're like, he seems cool. He's like with it together, and he's like the one guy that dies in that episode.
I know.
yeah.
Made me mad.
He's the interesting character, and you killed him off. Like, I don't care about this pregnant man over here or whoever else is around on the ship.
Man, Chibnall does
Yeah.
not care about collateral damage.
Not only does he not care about it, he's like, we need more. We need more people to die. Come on.
'Cause there's a chick that dies in this guy's with the captain or the commander, his crew dies in the first 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, we'll just move on. We'll rescue the rest of them, I guess.
Yeah. And that was such a superhero thing to do. I mean, not super villain thing to do. Let's take these hostages and freeze them in balls so that whenever we need to, we can threaten whoever they pertain to, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so New Year's special. I'm remembering bits of it.
It was, it was one of the better episodes, I think. What I think it did well was it kind of started to make, I mean, like, I don't know. It was probably a reaction to toxic fanboys who were like, this doesn't feel like Doctor Who. They're not doing anything old school. And so they brought back the Daleks, which is what you do. Because heaven forbid we have an entire season without Daleks. But what I did appreciate about it is that they made a single Dalek feel like a threat again. And they made a single Dalek seem kind of creepy again. Where like she attaches to the Dalek attaches to the chick and like drives her like a puppet. And I was like,
I just remember,
there's some cool stuff there. I mean, I did enjoy some of that.
The Daleks seem kind of helpless in general without the suit. But so that brings a whole other level of disgust that I thought they were gross before, but that makes them even more disgusting.
And I think that it works infinitely better on every level than the weird Moffat like people that are Daleks that like they're people, but then like the Dalek machine eye stalk comes out of their forehead. It was so stupid.
Yeah.
This like adds an element of body horror, psychological horror, and like evil. It was actually evil. Like she was like had to do horrible things. And oh man, I forgot all about that. That kind of changes my. I was gonna say I'm not fond of this episode because I don't like the weird. This Dalek split into 5 pieces. And
that part
weird
was
mystical.
That part was dumb.
Teleporting chunks of Dalek that come together. It's like that's never what a Dalek was. It wasn't like a mystical being. It's a creepy little mutant.
But they do. Yeah. I mean, it's done all kinds of weird stuff. Like I don't know what season it was or whatever, but with the weird, like all of the dead Daleks turned into some weird foam that filled up the.
Oh yeah, that was on the planet with the Daleks.
That was weird.
That's one of those they do with the one where he starts regenerating everybody.
Yeah.
Every Dalek that ever died.
But that possession Dalek thing does kind of change my mind.
That was one of the cooler, like almost horror elements of the season.
And then they did like a training montage where he builds his own Dalek suit, and I like that too.
An 80s steampunk junkyard Dalek remake. Yeah,
that's fun.
That's one area of this. They touched on it the first episode and then this last episode, but basically modern day, they'd wind up anytime they were in modern day, like back at I don't remember what city.
Sheffield.
There was a lot of like they'd end up in old warehouses,
and, like, something industrial
areas.
Yeah.
And I always liked the look of those sets. Like I thought that was fun. That kind of I guess when I think about it, feels like a little bit of the look of this season as a whole is like that kind of look, even though it's not. It's just a couple settings. But I don't know. I like that. So I like that a lot of the finale kind of took place there.
Yeah.
And okay, as Doctor Who, things are weird. But if you're in a time war, right? Yeah. And you're destroyed. Doesn't that mean you're destroyed in all of time?
Oh well,
the Time War is so weird. They're exploring that in the Big Finish stories right now, and it's like, it's such a mind trip.
Okay, but just because they're all worried about him sending this message and doing this and doing that, and I'm like, so what? Send a message to your planet that's dead and frozen in some other time. Who gives a crap? You're the only one here, and we're gonna kill you. I mean, well, I don't know, but if that's not the case, then I don't know.
The Time War's in concept super cool. So I wonder. I imagine Big Finish could do some cool stuff with it because I was kind of disappointed with the 50th anniversary like special how it handled it.
Yeah,
because maybe they'd already ran through all the big time weapons and stuff, but it was just a war.
Yeah.
And the idea of a time war, though, like you could really do some.
The War Doctor, the War Doctor sets really go into some of the weird time weapons that they used. Cool. I think it was the second one where they really delve into that, where most of the stories kind of have to do with some kind of bizarre weapon and just what terrible lengths they were willing to go to, both sides.
Well, why didn't they just say, "Hey, Doctor, you fought these guys a lot. Remember that time when you could have just killed them all right away and you
Genesis,
didn't?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we just send somebody else back there?
Yeah.
Send somebody else back there, have them touch the wires together, and then we won't have to worry about this anymore.
Right.
Wouldn't that have been the best solution?
Like watching the classic Doctor Who series for the first time after being introduced like as it was for us being introduced to modern Doctor Who and then going back and watching the classic series. That episode is so frustrating to me.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And I guess it was probably the same for the people at the time because Daleks was the big threat since like the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like just do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's that
Just
whole
do it, number 4.
What if you could kill Hitler thing?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically what that story is, thinly veiled.
Yeah, but don't do it with basic and Jello.
So I guess it feels like final thoughts on this season as a whole. We've touched on it as we've gone through these episodes, but
Yeah.
I really wish Doctor Who would stop being friends with its friends and being like, "Oh, you're my friend. How about we have you do it this time?" No, let me ask my other friend and go find people with talent and then hire them to do stuff.
Yeah.
I would agree because I don't mind the Doctor with a larger set of companions.
Mhm.
And these companions are fine, but man, they're so boring.
Yeah.
They're all so boring and they don't have any special talents. Like none of them.
No.
They're just there. Like,
Mhm.
and not that they don't chip in and do stuff, but
On one hand, it's like be careful what you wish for, because we got tired of having like Bad Wolf and having the
dude,
girl.
you're so right.
You know, it's like, be careful what you wish for because we got it. You know, like we lived
Yeah.
through The Girl Who Waited. We lived through The Impossible Girl. We lived through all of those things. And now we're getting actually just normal people. And,
What we asked for.
and it's
No,
like,
no.
oh,
I don't, but that's the difference. I don't want normal people, and I don't want the girl who exploded in space. I want Layla. I want somebody who is capable
yeah.
and
That's a good point.
and can fight, but isn't,
And interesting.
isn't some superhero. She's a normal person who's good at exploring and taking care of herself and all those things that you want a companion to be able to do.
Creates
Shared personality.
creates a conflict with the Doctor, because the Doctor is
Yeah.
like, let's not solve this with violence, and she's like, I'm going to solve this with violence. Just stop me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I agree. She's normal, but she's alien at the same time.
Yeah. Or even what's his name, Jamie. I mean,
Oh yeah,
he was normal, I guess, but he was.
displaced in time. Yeah.
Yeah, he was more about it too. I don't know.
He was on board. He was like, well,
I
you
guess
hit
these
on
guys are on board, but they're like so
boring.
dull. I don't know.
Well, you hit on like two of my favorites because I like the idea of, she was like a warrior from, another civilization that was definitely behind the time technologically, and Jamie was from whatever century type warrior. So like I like that. I kind of wish we could get some of that. Like they could bring in a companion who's not just a present day
Yes.
Earth person
Yes.
without having to go like alien or something complete. Well, I mean, obvious alien or robot or something ridiculous.
And it would be nice to have an alien too. Have an alien that's obviously an alien from the future. That'd be kind of cool.
I'm just
Yeah.
disappointed that the Doctor didn't pick up that cyborg guy from last.
Oh,
season
the
before this last
heist, the
one.
heist episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Capaldi was
Yeah.
even like
Yeah.
secretly like, call me.
I
Like
know.
he had something on the side with this guy. I want to know what their adventures were.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
it's,
Their
I-
adventures were, I bet,
it's
awesome.
It's interesting. I was.
I want to
looking-
know why that guy was into Capaldi anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
he was young. He's good looking.
I'm not necessarily
it
saying
in-
they had that on the side, but they had something going. They were working some heists, or they had something on the side.
Okay.
I want to know their adventures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead, we get
Big finish. Get on it.
Clara. Yeah,
Yeah.
Capaldi and Cyber guy. I don't remember his name.
Cyber guy.
Cyber guy.
Cyber heist.
Not a cyber. Yeah.
Yeah. Or some more Captain Jack type characters that are like,
Oh,
You know,
bring
What was
back
with all the rumors of Captain Jack showing up this season?
really?
There was so many rumors this last
Yeah.
season that he was going to be in it.
Oh.
But it
But-
would have been so good if they would have done that. I don't know.
Ooh,
Maybe
or
it wouldn't have.
That one guy from the Rosa Parks episode that
Yeah,
supposedly would be back.
he would have
That'd
been a
be
better
good-
bad guy for the finale. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have, but
But
he would have been
but
as
he-
good.
He'd be a good tie-in to get Captain Jack, because wasn't he like some kind of a space?
Yeah.
I mean, time cop.
Or James Marsters, Spike. Spike was kind of a sexually fluid time cop guy. You could bring him back in. What's he doing
Yeah.
right now?
Oh, that'd be interesting because I don't think he ever actually appeared in Doctor Who. He was a Torchwood guy.
Yeah. Oh,
It would
yeah.
be kind of cool to bring some Torchwood characters
Yeah.
into Doctor Who that originated over there.
Oh man,
That'd be fun.
I would be there for some Gwen Cooper. Just
See,
Gwen
if
Cooper
we had-
shows up and is a boss, and then the Doctor like kind of has to like, I don't know, reassert
Capaldi's
herself.
worked with her. Chibnall. Capaldi. Capaldi.
Oh man,
Chibnall's worked with her.
you know, watching this today, watching the finale today, Holly made an interesting comment, which I kind of agree with, and it was like, why don't they have like a transition period? You know, like where you have like, this was the first time where I kind of missed Moffat. It was like, why wouldn't you have them work together in a transitional season? Because I think this could have been better if there had been some transitional stuff happening.
Or at least coordinate. And I understand that's not necessarily, you know, maybe that's not how their hiring process goes, but coordinate at the end of Moffat's season leading into the beginning of, you know, so because maybe they have an issue of like, well, we can't have two showrunners sharing at the same season, but you could at least be like, well, we know you're out. We want to bring this guy in. So you two work together and
You write
at
a
least
few.
give us like,
You know, like you're
like
you're
an
not the
arc
runner, but
that
you're going to write a few
crosses
for
the
the season.
seasons. Mhm.
Yeah. Or like I said, hire good people
But I
that
think,
know how to write.
Yeah.
but I think they kind of like, though, I think they kind of like just hitting not the reset button, but kind of the reset button.
Yeah.
When Moffat came on, it was just like clearly different and kind of in the same situation that he left for, you know, the TARDIS is out of control flying through the air.
Yeah.
Reset is a fairy tale now. And then, I don't know, when Chibnall come on, it was like, reset. This is we're following these people.
I mean, I get
Yeah.
I get that it's different in TV land because like you hire people that have done the job for a long time, but it's like when we, you know, like I'm a teacher. So when we hire new teachers, we have them work with the people that are in their department, you know? Like
Mhm.
we don't just throw them to the wolves. And I feel like that's kind of what happens with these shows when they make these dramatic leaps in terms of tone. It's like, you've had a lot of great success doing things like Broadchurch, right? Super. I mean, like you've established yourself as someone who can carry a show, but it's a wildly different show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I feel, you know, like general impressions. I don't feel like this season is as bad as the toxic fanboys want to make it. They want to make it all about political stuff, and that's their claim to fame on the internet is that this season didn't work because it's 1,000% political, and I don't agree with that. I don't think like every episode is a call to arms against white males, you know. But I also do, I've got to concede it's not my favorite. You know, it's not my favorite series of Doctor Who by any stretch of the imagination.
Anytime we come up against like one of these topics in something we're covering, and we've talked about it already about the season, and I think this will be the goddess of thunder argument.
Yeah.
You know, the Thorina or whatever, whoever called it. But it's not what makes this season, the areas of the season that don't work for me. It's not that it doesn't work because you got an SJW agenda or it's trying to be too politically correct. The parts that don't work because it's not well written.
Right.
To be honest, like, yeah, there's definitely like there was an agenda on some of the season.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it. They went hard at the toxic fanboys.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, though in the Rosa episode, it is a white supremacist from the future who is like,
Yeah.
and then there was a very Trumpian type kind of rich bad guy, and like they hit it hard, and I'm fine with that. That's not the stuff that didn't work for me. It's just when it just wasn't written well.
Yeah.
And you can kind of like, it's science fiction, and Doctor Who, this is far from the first time Doctor Who's been used in to put forward some type of social message.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a staple of a lot of science fiction.
Yeah. You should go. You should write an article or something to the fanboys and be like, so if we took all that out, then what? It would be a good episode because
Because it would still suck.
Yeah, right.
Because and again, it's the Thor thing where it's like making a female Thor is not what it made it bad. It's badly written stuff. It's not the message. It's the way that this message was delivered is what made it poor.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's not even like the stuff that doesn't work for me doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with when it does have an agenda. It's the characters are unmemorable, or like there's like that lazy leap to like we don't know anything. Oh, I remember some legend. This is what happens. This is the like plot. Like that's what.
Or in order to move the plot forward, half the people in the story have to just have no mental capacity for 10 minutes, and then when they get it back, they just act like that never happened. And I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
God, that drives me crazy.
Wow, we hit this much more thoroughly than I expected, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
This might even go in an episode. Hey, YouTube commenter. I'm sorry, I'm not looking up your name, but YouTube commenter.
Insert name here.
I hope you enjoyed this.
I'm
glad we could.
I feel like they got the part 3 they wanted.
Yeah, totally.
When we're done editing this, after we put it up, we should put it in the comments as a reply to him.
Yeah.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
I'll comment on his comment. People, I don't know. I'm assuming people see that, but I don't know.
It sends you a message.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I reply to almost every comment we get on YouTube because we don't get that many.
Or at least it used to. I very rarely comment on anything, but I commented on one thing one time, and then somebody commented back on me and called me stupid. And then I got an argument with him about that. And then in the end, though, we both were like, oh, okay, well, cool. I'm glad we got to work that through.
I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed with that. You don't comment on things unless, when you do, there's always a thing. I don't comment on YouTube, and it kind of frustrates me, even if it's an innocent comment from my main YouTube channel that I use, which is Randall Sylvie.
Yeah.
I don't comment on anything because I just don't want to get into it. Even if it's like an innocent comment or video, I just don't, because the comments so often turn into a cesspool.
Hair is so beautiful. I hate people. God,
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made that video public.
I don't mind making it public. I just don't understand why people have an obsession with long hair. It's my hair. If I want to chop it off, I can chop it off. Don't.
You got a lot of support in those comments. We're talking about the very first YouTube video I uploaded was me and Melanie shaving her head.
Yes.
And it got like 20,000 views.
Oh, yeah.
And which creeped Melanie out, rightfully so, I think, or at least freaked you out a bit. So I made it private.
It surprised me because you had put something out before. I can't remember.
I might
the
have.
EMC birthday, which was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
everyone should have loved that, and it got like some views. And then me shaving my head gets like 20 times more.
It was like a 20-minute long video too. We took our time. It was like an hour-long process of us slowly like shaving your head and stuff. And I cut down to 20 minutes, so it's not no short video. But a lot of people were like, "Yeah, you go, girl."
Yeah.
So you got a lot of support on there.
Yeah.
It's so weird what people will like key into. I mean, we've talked about the stats lately for Grawlix and Grawlix Cinematic Universe, and one of the episodes that's got like the most views ever out of anything Grawlix related was the outtake video, or not even video, outtake, basically like a pre-show type of thing for Grawlix Cinematic Universe, and it's just the stuff that Jasper hasn't seen.
And in theory, it even sounds like it would be good, but like in execution, it's actually pretty dull. It's just Jasper reading a list of movies and me being like, no, that's not that great.
That's not you. I could see why you wouldn't have seen that one.
And that's like the most listened to episode in maybe almost, at least 6 months.
Because people are like, he hasn't seen that. What is wrong with this guy?
That's what people want to chime into. They want to tune in and judge you.
That was a healthy letters page segment.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, if you want us to like really dive into your comment more than we probably should, leave us a comment on YouTube.
Yeah, if you want an episode on your comment,
you can even like leave us a crappy comment.
I was going to say,
it'll be coming a
hate mail. That gets you a good episode or two. We'll be we don't know gets about a lot of things, so we'll reference you well into the future.
You could become a years-long inside joke.
Yep. We will immortalize you in radio or podcasto.
Stop laughing. Why are you laughing? Is the epic epic R word show.
Yeah.
I remember that comment word for word.
It's burned. It's burned into my memory. I can't remember the season finale of a show I love, but I can remember that comment.
I remember one troll left a comment 3 years ago.
For real. For real.